Sergeant Kelly Davis was the most trusted explosives expert in the U.S. Army. Over 6 years of deployment, she had safely cleared over 2,000 improvised explosive devices, saving countless American lives and earning the respect of every soldier who served with her. Her bomb disposal skills were legendary, and her safety record was perfect. But when investigators finally connected the dots between Kelly's cleared routes and subsequent enemy attacks, they made a horrifying discovery. For every mine Kelly had cleared, she had secretly planted two more. The woman trusted to protect American soldiers from explosives had been using her expertise to kill them. Kelly Davis's career in explosive ordnance disposal began in 2016 when she completed the Army's intensive EOD training program at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. The program was notorious for its high failure rate, with over 60% of candidates washing out due to the extreme technical demands and psychological pressure of working with live explosives on a daily basis. What are you eating while watching this story? Don't forget to follow and support. Kelly had excelled in every phase of the training, demonstrating natural aptitude for the complex technical skills required to identify, analyze, and safely neutralize improvised explosive devices. Her instructors were impressed by her ability to remain calm under extreme pressure and her intuitive understanding of the engineering principles that made explosive devices function. The psychological evaluation that was mandatory for EOD certification had identified Kelly as an ideal candidate for explosive ordnance disposal work. Her personality profile indicated high stress tolerance, excellent attention to detail, and the kind of methodical thinking that was essential for safely handling devices designed to kill anyone who attempted to disarm them. Kelly's first deployment to Afghanistan came just 6 months after completing her EOD training, when she was assigned to a forward operating base in Helmand Province that was experiencing heavy casualties from improvised explosive devices planted along supply routes and around coalition facilities. The area where Kelly was deployed had become a testing ground for increasingly sophisticated explosive devices that were challenging the skills of even experienced bomb disposal specialists. Enemy forces were using advanced triggering mechanisms, decoy devices, and booby traps designed to kill EOD personnel who attempted to neutralize roadside bombs. Kelly's introduction to combat explosive ordnance disposal was immediate and intense. Her first mission involved clearing a supply route that had been closed for 3 weeks due to multiple IED attacks that had killed 12 soldiers and wounded over 30 others. The route was considered so dangerous that several EOD specialists had refused to attempt clearance operations. But Kelly's approach to the dangerous route clearance was methodical and confident. She spent hours studying intelligence reports about previous attacks, analyzing photographs of explosive devices that had been used in the area, and developing detailed plans for safely identifying and neutralizing threats that might be encountered during the operation. The road clearance was successful, with Kelly identifying and safely disposing of 7 improvised explosive devices that had been positioned to maximize casualties among convoy personnel. Her thorough approach and technical expertise impressed her commanding officers and earned her immediate recognition as one of the unit's most capable EOD specialists. Kelly's success during her first major operation established her reputation as an exceptionally skilled and reliable explosive ordnance disposal expert. Over the following months, she was assigned to increasingly challenging missions that required advanced technical skills and the ability to work effectively under extreme danger. The pattern of Kelly's exceptional performance continued throughout her first deployment, with a success rate that exceeded anything her commanding officers had seen from other EOD specialists. She consistently identified explosive devices that other specialists had missed, and her disposal techniques were so effective that cleared areas remained safe for extended periods. Kelly's technical expertise was complemented by her ability to train other soldiers in basic explosive recognition and safety procedures. Her informal training sessions became popular among infantry units whose members were grateful for any knowledge that might help them avoid hidden explosive devices during patrol operations. The reputation Kelly developed during her first deployment made her one of the most requested EOD specialists for subsequent operations. When units were assigned to particularly dangerous areas, commanding officers specifically requested Kelly's assignment because her presence significantly improved survival rates for personnel operating in high-threat environments. Kelly's second deployment occurred 18 months after her first, when she was assigned to a special operations task force that was conducting classified missions against high-value targets in areas with sophisticated enemy explosive defenses. The assignment was recognition of her exceptional skills and reliability in explosive ordnance disposal operations. The missions Kelly supported during her second deployment were more complex and dangerous than anything she had encountered during her first tour. Enemy forces in the area had developed advanced explosive devices that incorporated multiple triggering mechanisms, anti-tampering systems, and sophisticated concealment techniques that made detection and disposal extremely challenging. But Kelly's performance during the special operations missions was flawless, with successful disposal of over 300 explosive devices without a single accident or casualty among personnel under her protection. Her ability to identify and neutralize complex explosive threats became legendary among special operations personnel who depended on her expertise for their survival. The technical innovations Kelly developed during her second deployment were incorporated into EOD training programs and operational procedures used throughout the military. Her methods for identifying concealed explosive devices and her techniques for safely neutralizing complex triggering mechanisms became standard protocols that saved lives in operations around the world. Kelly's third deployment was to Iraq, where she was assigned to support counterinsurgency operations in urban areas where enemy forces were using explosive devices as primary weapons against coalition forces and Iraqi civilians. The urban environment presented unique challenges for EOD operations, with explosive devices hidden in buildings, vehicles, and infrastructure that civilians use daily. The Iraq deployment was where Kelly's reputation for perfect safety records was truly established. Over 12 months of intensive operations, she cleared over 800 explosive devices from urban areas without a single civilian casualty or damage to critical infrastructure. Her work directly saved thousands of lives and enabled coalition forces to establish security in areas that had been considered too dangerous for normal operations. Kelly's success in Iraq was attributed to her exceptional technical skills and her ability to understand the tactical thinking of enemy forces who were using explosive devices as weapons of war. Her analysis of enemy explosive techniques provided intelligence that was used to develop countermeasures and training programs that reduced casualties throughout the theater of operations. The recognition Kelly received for her Iraq deployment included commendations from senior military leadership and recommendations for advanced training that would prepare her for assignment to the most challenging EOD operations in military service. Her career trajectory was pointing toward leadership positions in explosive ordnance disposal and possibly civilian employment with defense contractors who specialized in explosive threats. Kelly's fourth deployment was back to Afghanistan, where she was assigned as the senior EOD specialist for a regional command that was responsible for security operations across multiple provinces. The assignment represented significant career advancement in recognition of her status as one of the military's most capable explosive ordnance disposal experts. The Afghanistan assignment involved coordinating EOD operations across a wide geographic area, training local security forces in explosive recognition and disposal techniques, and developing strategic approaches to counter the increasingly sophisticated explosive threats that enemy forces were using against coalition operations. Kelly's strategic understanding of explosive threats impressed senior military leadership and led to her involvement in policy development for EOD operations throughout the region. Her recommendations influenced resource allocation, training priorities, and operational procedures that affected thousands of military personnel who were operating in high-threat environments. But it was during Kelly's fourth deployment that military intelligence analysts began to notice patterns in enemy explosive activities that seemed to contradict normal tactical behavior. Areas that Kelly had cleared of explosive devices were experiencing new attacks within weeks, using device types and placement techniques that suggested inside knowledge of coalition security procedures. The initial assumption was that enemy forces had developed sophisticated intelligence networks that allowed them to monitor coalition EOD operations and to respond quickly with new explosive devices in areas that had been recently cleared. This interpretation was consistent with the increasingly sophisticated tactics that enemy forces were using throughout the region. But Captain Sarah Martinez, an intelligence analyst specializing in patterns of enemy explosive activities, began to notice correlations between the timing of Kelly's operations and the subsequent placement of new explosive devices that seemed too precise to be explained by general intelligence gathering. Martinez's analysis revealed that areas cleared by Kelly experienced new explosive incidents at rates that were significantly higher than areas cleared by other EOD specialists. The timing of new attacks was also unusually consistent, with new devices appearing within specific time windows after Kelly's clearance operations. The pattern analysis that Martinez conducted was initially dismissed by senior intelligence officers who assumed that Kelly's high operational tempo simply meant that she was working in areas with higher levels of enemy activity. But Martinez's persistence in tracking the correlations eventually attracted attention from counterintelligence specialists who were trained to identify potential security breaches. The counterintelligence investigation into Kelly's operations was conducted with extreme discretion to avoid compromising an EOD specialist who was considered essential for ongoing operations. The investigation initially focused on whether Kelly might be under surveillance by enemy forces or whether her operational patterns might be providing intelligence to hostile elements. But the deeper the investigation went, the more disturbing the patterns became. Analysis of Kelly's movement records revealed that she had been present in areas shortly before explosive devices were discovered. But the timing suggested that she might have been in those areas before the devices were supposed to have been planted by enemy forces. The breakthrough in understanding Kelly's true activities came when investigators analyzed the technical characteristics of explosive devices that had been found in areas where Kelly had conducted operations. The devices showed construction techniques and component selections that were consistent with Kelly's technical expertise and access to military explosive materials. The forensic analysis of explosive devices linked to Kelly's operational areas revealed signature characteristics that suggested construction by someone with advanced EOD training and access to specialized military equipment. The devices were too sophisticated to have been constructed by typical enemy bomb makers, and they incorporated techniques that were taught only in advanced military explosive ordnance disposal programs. The realization that Kelly might be using her EOD expertise to construct explosive devices rather than just disarm them was so shocking that the investigation was immediately classified at the highest levels and transferred to specialized counterintelligence units that dealt with insider threats to military operations. The surveillance operation that was established to monitor Kelly's activities was one of the most complex and sensitive investigations in military counterintelligence history. Kelly's reputation and the critical nature of her work meant that any investigation had to be conducted without interfering with her ongoing EOD operations or alerting her to the fact that she was under suspicion. The surveillance team used advanced technical methods to monitor Kelly's activities during off-duty hours and to track her movements in areas where she was not conducting official EOD operations. The investigation revealed that Kelly was maintaining detailed maps of coalition patrol routes, supply convoys, and operational patterns that would be valuable for planning explosive attacks. The evidence that definitively proved Kelly's involvement in planting explosive devices came from technical surveillance that recorded her constructing improvised explosive devices using military equipment and materials that she had access to through her EOD duties. The surveillance showed her using the same techniques she employed for disposal operations, but in reverse to create sophisticated explosive traps. The arrest of Kelly Davis was conducted during a routine EOD operation to avoid alerting enemy forces to the fact that their most valuable intelligence asset had been compromised. The arrest team waited until Kelly had completed her official mission before taking her into custody on charges of treason, murder, and providing material support to enemy forces. The interrogation of Kelly revealed the full scope of her activities over 6 years of deployments. She had been recruited by enemy intelligence services during her first deployment through a combination of financial incentives and ideological manipulation that had convinced her that American military operations were unjustified and harmful to civilian populations. Kelly's method of operation had been to conduct legitimate EOD clearance operations that established her reputation and provided her with access to areas where she could plant explosive devices without being detected. Her perfect safety record was maintained by ensuring that devices she planted were not activated until well after her departure from operational areas. The investigation into Kelly's activities revealed that she had been responsible for over 200 American military casualties and countless civilian deaths through explosive devices that she had planted using her expertise and access to construct sophisticated weapons that appeared to be enemy-manufactured improvised explosive devices. The trial of Kelly Davis was conducted under military jurisdiction, with extensive security measures to protect classified information about her methods and the extent of damage she had caused to military operations. Her conviction on charges of treason and murder resulted in a death sentence that reflected the severity of her crimes against fellow soldiers. The revelation that one of the military's most trusted EOD specialists had been using her expertise to kill American soldiers led to comprehensive reviews of security procedures for personnel with access to explosive materials and sensitive operational information. Kelly's case became a watershed moment that changed how the military approached insider threat detection and prevention. The psychological evaluation of Kelly after her arrest revealed the complex motivations that had led her to betray her fellow soldiers. The combination of financial incentives, ideological manipulation, and the psychological pressure of repeatedly handling explosive devices had created conditions that made her susceptible to enemy recruitment and control. The families of soldiers killed by Kelly's explosive devices struggled to understand how someone who had been trusted to protect their loved ones had instead been responsible for their deaths. The betrayal was particularly devastating because Kelly had often been present at memorial services for soldiers killed by devices she had planted. The technical analysis of Kelly's explosive devices revealed innovations that had made them more deadly and harder to detect than typical enemy improvised explosive devices. Her expertise had been used to develop new techniques that enemy forces adopted throughout the region, increasing casualties among coalition forces even after her arrest. The counterintelligence procedures developed in response to Kelly's case became standard protocols for monitoring personnel with access to sensitive materials and operational information. Her betrayal had demonstrated vulnerabilities in military security that had been previously unrecognized and unaddressed. Kelly's case also led to enhanced psychological screening and monitoring procedures for personnel assigned to high-stress positions, where access to dangerous materials and sensitive information created opportunities for insider threats to develop and operate without detection. The long-term impact of Kelly's activities extended beyond the immediate casualties she had caused to include damage to trust between military personnel and degradation of operational effectiveness in areas where soldiers could no longer be certain that cleared routes were actually safe from explosive threats. The military's response to Kelly's betrayal included increased redundancy in EOD operations, with multiple specialists required to verify clearance operations, and enhanced technical surveillance of areas after EOD clearance to detect any unauthorized explosive placement activities. Kelly Davis had indeed cleared over 2,000 explosive devices during her 6-year career, but she had also planted over 3,000 devices that killed and wounded hundreds of American soldiers who had trusted her expertise to keep them safe. Her perfect safety record had been the cover for one of the most devastating insider threats in military history. The woman who had been trusted to protect American soldiers from explosive death had instead become their most lethal enemy, using her expertise and access to turn bomb disposal into a cover for mass murder. Kelly's betrayal had demonstrated that the most dangerous threats sometimes come from those who are most trusted to provide protection. Sergeant Kelly Davis's case became a classified study in how insider threats could exploit positions of trust and technical expertise to cause devastating damage to military operations while maintaining cover that prevented detection for years. Her story became a reminder that expertise without loyalty is more dangerous than any external enemy threat. The explosive devices that Kelly had planted continued to cause casualties for months after her arrest, as investigators worked to identify and neutralize the sophisticated bombs she had hidden throughout operational areas. Her technical expertise had created a deadly legacy that endangered soldiers long after her betrayal had been discovered and stopped. Kelly Davis had used her position as the military's most trusted bomb disposal expert to become its most prolific bomber, turning her expertise in saving lives into expertise in taking them. Her perfect record of protecting soldiers had been the perfect cover for destroying them, proving that sometimes the most dangerous explosives are the ones planted by the people trusted to find them.